Hi everyone, so I'm going to be talking about the Developmental Reading Assessment. The DRA is a standardized system of benchmark running records used to assess reading development. It was created to assess and document grades K-3 and 4-8 students' development to determine whether students are reading on, above, or below grade level. The DRA identifies students' strengths and areas in need of improvement at their independent reading level, and it also helps teachers with planning instruction, monitoring reading growth, preparation for testing expectations, and selecting materials that match students' instructional levels. The resource includes the DRA Resource Guide, and it's a teacher's resource book that instructs teachers how to use this resource to collect information about their students' reading. It also includes the leveled stories or assessment texts, which students read, and then the assessment masters. So the DRA includes a number of forms listed here. We have story outlines, observation guides, developmental reading continuums, focus for instruction, student book graphs, and reporting forms. Students first fill out a reading engagement survey, so the teacher may ask with whom the student reads, what stories are preferred, and what or how many books have been read within the past 2 months. Reading engagement level is determined by summing 2 scales, the wide reading scale and the self-assessment scale. The result classifies the students' reading engagement into one of 4 ordinal levels, which are intervention, instructional, independent, and advanced. Second, oral reading is scored on accuracy and rate. The administration of oral reading fluency sections, what happens is the administrator pre-selects the text from 2 to 3 books that are part of the benchmark assessment books. Then administration and scoring procedures for this section differ by the age of the examinee. So evaluation of performance for younger students depends on phrasing, monitoring, and self-corrections, problem-solving, unknown words, and accuracy. And for older students, it depends on expression, phrasing, rate, and accuracy. The combined scores of each of those respective components compose what's called the oral reading fluency score. The third step is the comprehension and printed language concepts. Younger students are administered the printed language concepts section to assess one-to-one word matching and directionality. The comprehension section assesses story retell and story understanding. Depending on age, the initial task is to read either orally or silently from the text. The student then provides an oral retell of the story, orally responds to comprehension questions, writes a summary, and/or writes responses to comprehension questions. And then fourth, teachers analyze students' responses to determine level of performance and strengths and weaknesses. The actual procedures are much more extensive than described here and are specific to each age level. This depicts the details of how DRA shapes instruction. So first, the assessment stage. Ongoing assessment enables teachers to gather information about individual reading skills, knowledge, and dispositions. Then you would conduct the one-on-one reading conference, which takes about 30 minutes per conference. Depending on the text level of difficulty, though, it could range from 10 to 45. In the analysis and reflection stage, information collected confirms and identifies what students can accomplish independently and their next steps. Next is planning. The analysis helps teachers prep, so whether or not they have enough reading material appropriate for that student. And then we put this information to practice with the teaching component to better support student learning. So I'm going to show an example with Taniqua's data. This is one of many level stories or assessment texts, and they range in text difficulty. Levels of text difficulty are indicated on a scale from A through 44, and were determined by language, story structure, story appeal, concepts, vocab, amount of picture support, text size, layout, and word count. This is the sheet that helps the teacher conduct the running record and score the assessment. So statements briefly describe details and events for each story. Teachers use the overviews to highlight or underline the info students include or imply in the retellings. More specifically, it helps measure accuracy by counting the insertions, miscues, and omissions. The observation guide forms include teacher directions and prompts for each level text and spaces to record observations. The developmental reading continuum is a permanent record for each student. This is where teachers circle a range of observed reading behaviors that best describe the student. After circling the selected statements, the teacher identifies the stage, so whether they are an emergent, early, transitional, or extending reader, that best reflects the student's performance. Then we have focus for instruction. It's a checklist of possible interventions the teachers can use to introduce, model, support, and/or extend. The student book graph represents the increased level of text difficulty read successfully by the student across the years. So you would just shade the box that corresponds with what the student has achieved. Graphs and charts document and report individual and whole class progress. The forms enable teachers to share student progress with parents and administrators if they wish. And the reporting form, so this would be filled out for Taniqua and her classmates to help administrators quickly identify struggling students who remain at risk. So I looked at research from McCarthy and Christ. Face validity was rated by 66 teachers and reading specialists. So specifically, they rated the instrument on accuracy in measuring students' reading levels, sensitivity to students' growth in reading performance, incorporation of appropriate components of fluency and comprehension, and informing instruction for individual students. And the professionals reported high face validity, which means or indicates that the DRA appropriately and fully covered the full domain of reading from their perspective, and they also reported high usefulness of the assessment. They found no significant differences in difficulty between passages across age levels. The correlation coefficients for test-retest reliability were all above 0.9, indicating consistent evaluations across administrations. And to investigate into rater reliability further, 26 independent raters administered the DRA to 30 students, and raters agreed 66 and 72% of the time on oral reading fluency and comprehension. The developers reported that these coefficients demonstrate moderate and substantial inter-rater reliability. So the pros for the instrument is the test is designed for teacher administration, which reduces the need for specialized personnel. It also allows the teacher to observe student performance within standardized conditions, which can lend to an improved understanding of individual student needs and achievement. It can be used across 9 grades, K to 8, so if a school were to purchase a kit, it would benefit all teacher grade teams. The DRA also measures important components of reading and adds to the unique measure of what the developers describe as reading engagement. And they also report convincing evidence for construct validity to identify reading difficulties. Now, some of the cons: there's no evidence for support for some of the recommended applications, such as progress monitoring or identification of specific strengths or weaknesses. It's extremely expensive. Tasks are likely to require a fairly substantial amount of time to administer. And it's not exactly clear how such categorizations are used to guide instruction or how they align with the curriculum, so this can pose challenges for applications of formative evaluation. I don't think it should be used to make high-stakes educational decisions. Because of the difficulty of administration, and it's evident from the technical manual along with the numerous scales and forms, this assessment is likely to require substantial training and practice to establish proficiency at the administration. An assessment that requires extensive training, practice, and time might have limited application in schools. Thus, I would say if there is a trained ISSP or literacy specialist leader who can be responsible for administering and recording data, then I would recommend it. Otherwise, I would question the quality and inter-rater reliability of the assessment. Thank you so much for watching. You're experts, and maybe you'll use this in the future.